Pardesi Beats.
This is Pardesi Beats Unplugged. I'm Simran. Joining us is Malik, Kush, and Pat. And we're going to be doing a post-mortem on the Oilers season. It ended Sunday night, I think. Time is a bit of a blur now.
Almost Monday morning.
Yeah, Monday morning in triple overtime where the Oilers lost in 4 straight games to the Vancouver Canucks. No, Winnipeg Jets.
Winnipeg Jets.
I don't really care who they lost to, frankly. It doesn't really matter. It
You
might as well have been
said
the
that
Vancouver
team.
Canucks.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it might as well because it doesn't matter. It was a bunch of random jobbers and they goalied the crap out of us. That's what happened. And it was basically because we weren't a good enough team. What do you guys think? Kush, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on well, let's go with the season, the playoffs, and then and maybe your thoughts afterwards.
I'm going to start with one word.
In 3.
Okay.
Hey. It's Kush's turn.
No. I just got to say one word before Kush goes in.
Terrible.
I'm very disheartened.
Okay.
After all this, Kush, take it away.
Disheartened. Okay. Well, we've done like some analysis already of the season and we graded like 2 weeks ago or whatever our other podcast. We kind of graded where we thought the Oilers were, and yeah, regular season I think they overperformed what we expected, especially considering the signings that they had. But in terms of relativity in terms of the actual league or where they stood, it wasn't the best. Obviously, mid of the pack pretty much. In the postseason, I don't think anyone expected this. Like they got absolutely manhandled essentially. Their souls were shat upon. It became what everyone thought it would be. It's almost like a similar blueprint as to Toronto, how they played Oilers during the regular season series. The only difference was that Jets didn't have anywhere near the scale that Toronto had, so their scoring was much lower.
That's a really good inference there. Yeah,
because
somebody watched the game tape.
Yeah. I mean, there was a good example Edmonton to use, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Edmonton.
Yeah, and when you expect the team's secondary players to step up, that didn't really happen. You saw how bare this team really is without Dry and McDavid able to impact it, and
Clefbaum missing.
You saw the back end, how really weak it is. But I think it's even deeper. I think it has to do a lot with the coaching. I think the style of play, there wasn't adjustments, and there was also the same way of playing. Like when you look at the Jets, like they deserve this series like so much over the Oilers, because when you're looking at the urgency and stuff and like how the team's playing as a unit, I saw they were all buying into what their coach is telling them.
They played their system effectively.
Exactly. Yeah. So they did not adhere. They were very disciplined, especially when you have McDavid trying to head fake you and try to do some little dangles here and there. It didn't
faze them.
The mantra was always the same: outside, right? So they boxed out really well, kept the danger players to the outside for the most part. There were some chances, and Oilers couldn't capitalize, right? And a lot of their shots, they were relatively, to me, a lot of the chances were pretty routine. A lot of people talked up Hellebuck. I think he just made the routine saves. I don't think he was tested enough to be like, this guy was super clutch this series. His numbers are going to be great, but I don't think the quality of chances the Oilers have had, like what they've produced in like the regular season, it wasn't there as much because they played such good defense to contain the danger players. So embarrassing performance, really. Not much else you can say for a team where they finished and what you were kind of expecting. I I think the core players of the team will hopefully learn something. I think the coaching has to change. We saw in game 4 how Tippett really did not utilize his players towards the end, and that was
You significantly shortened the bench, and that was
and then also then you're
trouble.
Yeah, and it's
I can understand the logic.
Yeah, it's also back-to-back, right, game, and then you're relying on those same guys, but you have to look at it like who caused the turnover as well for the game to get iced against us, right? Like, it was McDavid. He couldn't get the puck deep, right? So I think at a certain point, the reliance you're doing, like the heavy reliance on even on these superstars, it's you can't, right? This isn't this isn't NBA, this isn't NFL where certain key players can win you games.
Exactly.
Right? It's a 4-line thing. 4-line forwards, 3-line D, and then
one goal is 1 point, essentially, if you want to compare it to NFL and NBA, right? So
Pat, what's your take on this?
Well, here's the thing. Like last season, this season, both have a similar taste. That's a similar taste is left in my mouth, resulting from last season, and then also this season. However, this season, I had a lot more hope because there was, I said it earlier on. I may have said it when we were on radio on Pardesi Beats Power Play. I can't remember. Regardless, I know you guys can attest to the fact that I said this North Division situation, even though it allowed us to play, our ranking in the North Division is going to bite us in the butt in terms of the confidence we have when we get into the playoffs. Now, I know
it gave us a unique opportunity.
It did. But the thing is, okay, let's say, because let's be real, the Oilers, the players played to the best that they could in the situation they had. 3 of the 4 games were in overtime, triple overtime in the last one. Like, we held on. The players really rallied in the third period overtimes. You can see the players playing smart and rallying together, for lack of better terms.
They're close games.
And no pun intended, the players towards the last 2 games were very united. And I'll get into that later why I said that. But the players were united and emotion was coming out, and that whole we're in this together, let's do this vibe came out at the end. I didn't see that last year in the whatever you want to call those qualifiers, not playoffs, but this season it started coming towards the end of the playoffs. Mind you, that usually does start coming up in the first round in game 2, 3, 4. Now, we didn't get past that. However, if this, as a lot of us alluded to in our predictions, if this went to like a 5th or 6th or 7th game, I believe we could have, if we won this game 4, I believe we could have won the series based on the emotion and momentum. However, we didn't. I don't think it's any individual player's fault. I think it's the collective coaching strategies, the plays that are set up and all that's fault. Now, I'm still proud of them because they held it together. It was all 1 goal mostly, except for maybe the third game. They were arguably 1 goal games. They were still close. And in the regular season, Edmonton, Winnipeg, back and forth. There was even positioning in the division where Winnipeg would be above us, we'd go above them, and there were these little things. So I think the matchup was very close, regardless of anything. Edmonton and Winnipeg would have been one of those, like, either one will sweep it or they're just going to butt heads and lock horns for the rest of it. And I believe it was that. However, Winnipeg's, in my opinion, I think Winnipeg has that pedigree of being a playoff team for the last few seasons. They've been in the playoffs, mostly speaking, and the Oilers haven't. And so that playoff experience, or lack of, the Oilers really shows, in my opinion, watching old teams, like even the 90s teams in the playoffs, Doug Weight, Bill Guerin. I'm not talking Gretzky era here because it's done and dusted, right? But like Ryan Smith, Doug Weight, those days, they had way more playoff power and experience. They were able to do the unthinkable and turn games around and win in 7. Cujo saves up, Todd Marchand breakaway. These type of things come from experience and, I guess, for lack of better terms, will. And you need to have knowledge and experience to have that will and that desire in the playoffs because it's a totally different beast. So I think the Winnipeg Jets having that, and also being a solid team, let's be fair, they're a solid team, allowed them to not let us beat them. And that's the correct way of putting it, in my opinion. They didn't let us beat them. Teams can let the Oilers beat them. And if you let the Oilers beat you, they will beat you hard. But if you put up a fight and play well, like the Winnipeg did, then you can definitely stand up to the lack of depth and experience that the Oilers do have.
Malik, how you feeling about this?
I think everybody's kind of hit the nail on the head. I think the biggest thing, and I talked about this in our playoff predictions, was somehow Dave Tippett is going to big brain this. And that's exactly what happened. As fans, if we're able to predict what the play is going to be, you can only imagine how the coaching from the Winnipeg Jets, watching the tapes, as we mentioned, they'll know exactly that they're going to pass over. McDavid's going to pass to Draisaitl on the power play. They close that lane. The power play was ineffective. Not only that, you see the coaching of, and I'm not going to pick on this one player particularly, but if you're shortening the bench, you have a player like Gaetan Haas who hasn't played in a few weeks. You're relying on him in offensive zone faceoffs, defensive zone faceoffs.
To come in cold.
And come in cold. And then you're like, okay, now we're in a triple overtime situation. I've benched this defenseman. I've benched these players for so long. Let's just throw them out there. I feel like, and I've talked about this before, is the coaching is the issue. And because of the strategies that were deployed in this series, the Oilers were more exposed. And that's not to give Winnipeg, they really showed up. If you look at all of their players, they got scoring from not only their top six, but the bottom six. Like you had players like Tony Nato, Appleton, Perreault, they're all chipping in. And that's kind of what the Oilers were missing. We can blame that we don't have the depth scoring, but again, I think we can't blame the players. It's more of the coaching strategies that were deployed, and we were out-coached by.
Can I add something to your point, and keep it really short? The thing is, as a coach or manager, coach in this essence, you have to know, even if you don't have depth, you have to recognize the players that can fill the spot you need appropriately. And I don't think that was addressed well enough. There's still players that, okay, sure, we don't have the best depth, but we have players that can fill certain roles that I believe were underutilized, not even used. Where were some of the players? You know what I mean?
The adaptability. I think the biggest thing is we talked about this.
Perfect word. Yeah.
And this is the exact same story that we were talking about last year in the play-in when we lost to Chicago. We're like, oh, Dave Tippett didn't adapt. And it's exactly the same thing that happened this time around.
Not only it didn't adapt, there was some big brain moments, some real big brain moments there. I've been thinking about this for about a week now, since the series started and we dropped that first game. And for me, it's really been a matter of two things. And one of them is Tippett, and the other one is the team's construction under Holland. And for me, Tippett, when he's played or coached as a guy who's basically been the underdog, he's gotten a lot out of his teams. He's tried to basically squeeze out everything he can, and that's great in the NHL. A defensive mindset is very, very good in the NHL, especially when you're the weaker team.
Yeah,
like Winnipeg was in this series, like Winnipeg's been all season.
Yeah.
Because goal scoring is the hardest thing you can do, but limiting a goal scorer is the easiest thing, especially in the playoffs, because you're allowed to do much more outside of the rules that doesn't get called. And when you play in that way, it's basically the team that makes the next mistake that loses.
We're playing against up against the corner.
So
right?
So essentially, if you're coaching,
Dave Tippett wasn't
coaching not to lose.
Yeah, he wasn't coaching to win. He was coaching not to lose.
Not to lose.
And I feel like that was the strategy all along. He's like, okay, so the top six match, we can outplay them in the bottom six, but the bottom six didn't perform. So we coached not to lose, not coaching to win.
You're hoping for the whole roster to be a knife fight, and for you to draw them into a tie, basically. And then you're hoping that your special teams, which has been good all season, you rely on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to break loose for that one extra goal.
But also playoff hockey, we've seen
it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Especially when you're the stronger team.
It's that element under
to
stress.
See all the power play.
I'll say this: you have you have all of these players under your purview,
Disposal.
your leadership,
Yeah.
right? And to not understand their strengths and their weaknesses at this level, at this stage of the
late.
game, this late in the game, like you had all this trial time. We locked up a playoff spot weeks ago. You had all this time to try different line combinations, do all this, do all that.
Try
And
third
your
goalies.
argument was, I want to keep guys fresh and hot for the playoffs. Well, you got stoned. You lost like 4 straight 1-goal games.
He wanted to
played
keep
really well,
players.
by the way.
Yeah, like he wanted to play. Like he said, fresh and hot. But then you have
because you have no
you have
other
players
options
like
coming in.
Gaetan Haas jumping into the lineup. You
Yeah,
have James
or
Neal jumping into the lineup. But
Drew
like that
Shore.
wasn't the.
Like it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and then to
But you gotta give it to Shore. He looked
he actually looked.
eye test wise, because I know you're the advanced stats guy and you hate Devon Shore so much, but he gave the hustle
so much.
I don't.
He
Okay,
showed
here's,
so
here's the thing.
much.
And here's the thing, and this is a bigger problem with Dave Tippett is I don't hate Devon Shore. I think Devon Shore is a useful player, but you have to understand
utilize properly.
a guy's limitations. He is not a reliable 5-on-5 player. Maybe for a game, the guy gets hot.
That's true.
He looks okay.
We
He
remember
looked
him,
good.
Yeah,
he looked good in
and the
game
penalty
4.
kill? Penalty kill?
You remember a guy good. He looks good on the penalty kill. He's a really, really good penalty killer, right? But look at this. They didn't. Well, how many power play goals did they allow all series? I think it was like 2. But guess what? They lost this series 5-on-5. And that's the big problem here with Dave Tippett is you can have all your you can have half a dozen power play or penalty kill specialists on your team, and that's what they were trotting out there was a bunch of penalty kill specialists in the bottom 6. But you lost this game you lost this series 5-on-5.
You this day and age in the NHL, you need to be a 5-on-5 team.
You need to be a 4-line deep 5-on-5 team.
Yeah.
That as well, but like we got a lot of power play opportunities. I know there's a lot of calls that weren't called. We saw McDavid get mauled, whatever. That is what it is. But the opportunities that we got on the power play, we did not capitalize on them.
No. And
Winnipeg knew that our play is McDavid to Draisaitl one times it.
Yeah.
The one time we scored on the power play, McDavid's pass got chipped away back to him, and then he scored, and they're like, "Oh, look at that adaptability." But
I'm going to give a comparison
made
to
me
2006 real quick. Sorry, let me just quickly do this.
Sure.
In 2006, do you think Detroit, when we played them in the first round, did you think they expected Fernando Pisani? Did they expect that to happen?
I'll tell you something about that Edmonton Oilers team. They were running like a 56% possession rate entire season, and the only thing that team did not have was goaltending, and they got that at the deadline, and that was probably one of the most complete teams I've ever seen. The one thing we didn't have probably was power play scoring and like top end skill, but that team was a deep team to your point, but also like they were no joke possession wise, and they rocked a President Trophy winning Detroit team.
And Yzerman's face said it all in that series at the end. But like the Winnipeg Jets, do you think, based on that sort of perspective, do you think they were prepared? Did they need to prepare for more than maybe 2 or 3 players on our team? No. Because you don't show that depth.
But you don't
have like a Fernando Pisani coming out of like the corner just destroying the playoff stats, right? They're like McDavid shut down, Draisaitl shut down, we're good. And that's
here's the thing, like you can't predict a Pisani, right? That was a heater, like that was an anomaly. I think the version of Pisani was the regular season's Mike Smith. I don't anticipate he'll ever do that again at 38 or 39 years old.
Well, especially
there's rumors that and Holland has expressly stated that he'd like to re-sign the guy, but I think that's just ludicrous. We'll get to that later.
I think he wants to reward him, but I don't think that's how.
Yeah, you reward him by setting him loose and letting him sign
freeing his soul.
Yeah, so he can get that big money deal somewhere else and crap his pants, and then realize that okay, I'm done. You can't be signing 40-year-old goalies anymore. Especially for a regular season that's 82 games long.
Let's make a movie called The 40-Year-Old Goalie and just
just awful.
Take it there.
No, but what I'm saying is that you have a team which, for all intents and purposes, like you can't predict guys like Fernando Pisani, but what you can do is make sure that your roster is set up so that you have enough scoring depth throughout it.
But that's Vancouver. That's
or
just
Winnipeg. Yeah, Winnipeg looked like the more prepared team. Flat out,
Winnipeg
they knew they
was
had a
prepared,
plan on
yeah.
how to handle McDavid, and that was
Draisaitl.
they needed top-down control on him at all times. On the breakout, they had two guys at high coverage constantly that were blocking him, that were impeding him, that were interfering with him. And those calls weren't, he wasn't getting those calls. And he wasn't going to get those calls.
Yeah.
Okay. Because penalties stay even between both teams. It's not a matter of unfairness. It's just when referees refuse to make calls, the better player suffers.
Or
So you could have
adapt.
Yeah. Well, no, but there's
there's limitations, right? Like I
the-
like
the
how
way you-
somebody
the
else
way you-
put it. Sorry,
the way you
but-
adapt to that. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Kush.
Oh, I was gonna say like somebody else was comparing it to like NFL and like NBA, right? Like your star
Yeah.
players are your star players in the NBA.
Yeah.
They're clutch, but in NHL, it's like that is actually kind of like you're doing the anti of that because you're letting all these players. Let me jump onto you. Let me grab you. Let me impede your skills and what make you who you are. It's like the NHL doesn't want to see their superstars be superstars almost like come playoff time. Like they don't care because the refs, it's I mean, you can't even say anything. The whistles are put away way more.
And this is not. Let's avoid turning it into a criticism of the officiating because we could do that very easily. Yeah. But to your point, Kush, like and Malik, the way these guys have to adapt is by surrounding a guy like McDavid with enough skill that he doesn't have to do it every shift. He doesn't have to be the guy every shift.
Yeah, literally.
If there's somebody else underneath him.
Yeah, so many of his shifts is just McDavid in the zone, and like there's 3-4
he's
bodies on him.
He's trying to turn chicken shit into chicken salad, like every
shift. He can't do anything.
But you got to give credit to Winnipeg. Every shot, almost every shot, and I know Simran, you're gonna be like, no, I hate shot blocking, but there was always a stick in the lane.
It was
always a body there, and it was effective.
Dude, when you're the worst team, like you're the lesser team in this scenario, you get whatever you can get in front of those shots.
As a fan watching it, we're like, Draisaitl shot, he missed the net. Then we're like, oh, there was a stick on it. There's a stick, and we were just getting frustrated.
It's not the act. It's not the act that's a problem. Shot blocking is an effective way of limiting someone's offense. It's a very effective way.
And Winnipeg
it's the trend. It's the trend that's an issue. This is what people don't understand. I don't get angry that a team blocks shots. I get angry that a team blocks shots and thinks that's a good thing. That, hey, because you blocked this many shots, you deserve a high five.
Let me give
you got outplayed.
A pay raise. Yeah, right.
let me give you a gold medal. Chris Russell's the epitome of that. He gets blown by on defense constantly, retreats back to his own net, just gets mauled with shots all game long because he can't get the puck out cleanly. And yet we're patting him on the back for being a good soldier. No, you're a terrible hockey player. You're bad at your job. And the only thing you're good at is standing in front of the goalie and getting hit with a puck because you literally can't handle it. Now I look at, it's the same thing. I got into it with Hansra on Twitter. And I had to mute him. I was so upset. And he literally got him a skin.
You also blocked me on Twitter because I riled you up so
Stay in
much.
your lane.
I was just doing that and I knew I was just saying things on purpose. And
I was so triggered.
You to block.
Now's not the time.
He legitimately blocked me.
But his point was, it was after that Logan Stanley goal, I think, in the first game.
Yeah.
That it was a point shot that got deflected, went into the net. Yeah. And I was commenting on our own offense where we had taken 5 or 6 straight point shots and we were looking for a tip and trying to get something going. And I'm like, look, that might be okay for the Winnipeg Jets, who are a lesser team, but that's a low percentage play for the Edmonton Oilers.
But I think
especially when you have
this ties back to Kush's point. The shots that we got, even the ones that we did or didn't get, they were all low risk shots.
Low risk shots.
Halbach was stopping him.
It's not necessarily what the shot charts show. It shows that so there's 2 narratives here. One is that we got outplayed by Winnipeg and we lost, and we got stomped on. The other narrative here is that, and this is backed up by the statistics, is that we outplayed the heck out of Winnipeg. We had more high danger shots. That means more shots in the slot. We had more shots in general for most of the games. There was a few periods where they outplayed us, but generally we were the better team. And Hellebuck was better than Smith, and that was the story of the series.
I feel
Okay.
like it. Yeah, go ahead. I'm just gonna say both the goalies.
I don't
performed
even
very
know.
well.
Both of these things can be true.
Well, they are true. Both are true. In my opinion.
Both are true.
Yeah,
Because
I think
they were very effective at playing their game and limiting our chances and frustrating
100%.
us. And they were very effective at limiting McDavid and Draisaitl in particular. And the rest of the roster, they didn't have to worry too much about.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the rest of it was goaltending.
And then the other thing,
Dave
like
Tippett.
I didn't even like when you were just alluding to like point shots and stuff.
Mhm.
They were getting like really good tips in those first couple games actually.
Yeah.
And Hellebuck did save the you expect
Yeah,
those to
yeah,
go
they had
in.
a couple shots.
But the other thing, like we talk about like game 4 in the power play. We got a lot of power plays in game 4, right? Refs decided to try to even the series, so when people look back, they'll be like, "Hey, look, Oilers got power plays."
Yeah.
But anyways, like I wasn't. The thing that annoyed me a lot was like they weren't. I know you're saying like there's some low quality chances, but like why is Barry not? He barely shot. Like he had a few point shots where I thought he had a lot of lanes, and the Oilers were starting to trying to do the. They were trying to do the high percentage plays.
Like they're trying
like,
to
you could
make
just
the
see,
perfect
right?
pass, dipsy doodle, get
Yeah.
that
Well,
it's
one
not
shot.
There's a simplicity
Yeah.
to like when they say, okay, you gotta
Pucks
go
on
hard,
net.
get the puck on the net, like those things. You gotta get that lucky bounce. Like you saw it happen at least twice for Winnipeg, right? It was through screens, dirty goals.
Yep.
It won them overtime games, right? Like sometimes that old school kind of narrative is.
I mean,
worse.
we can argue that those are weak goals by Smith to let in. I will say the
But
the
then
third overtime game?
why don't you call a timeout after the team scores 2 goals in quick succession?
yeah, that like
Why don't you call a timeout? And
Like,
it's going back to coaching, right?
the third game for me was like a collapse by Smith and incompetence by
the coach.
by Dave Tippett.
So let me say one last thing. I know we're going to transition to some other topics that we have prepared, but here's sort of the last thing as the old timer in the group here.
Sure.
At the end of the day, regardless of if, when, why, what, who, and all the other things journalists stick to, the point that I want to make is a good team, whether it's from the captain like Mark Messier back in the day that I was alluding to earlier off air, or not during the Canucks time though, but or is it like Glenn Sather type of manager / coach, or whatever the case may be. A good team, because a team is all of the above, right? A good team, even if the refs are crapping on you, doesn't matter what, will find a way to win. Boom. And that's it. And so with that statement, I really question, rhetorically, not actually, if this team is good enough yet, if at all, to be at that level. Like clearly, despite outplaying Winnipeg in certain capacities, they beat us. At the end of the day, nothing matters more than winning. And if you win with dirty Ryan Smith off of his nose goals, or you win with the finesse of a Datsuk like snipe,
And I think there's a common trend that we talked about. This is the exact same conversation we had last year after we lost to Chicago in the play-in. It goes right back to management. And Ken Holland had his presser today, and
oh boy,
there were some questionable statements made.
Oh boy,
and I think we should definitely touch on what we think the future of this team should look like and what we think it will look like. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was, and rightfully so, Mike Smith was arguably our best player in the playoffs and in
Can't
the
knock
regular season.
Smith. Can't knock Smith.
But Ken Holland explicitly stated, "I am looking to re-sign Mike Smith."
You can't promote the crap out of Smith either.
and we were frustrated in the offseason last year when, after we missed out on Markstrom, you signed Mike Smith the next day. We're like, oh, could you
with
not
such
have...
a panic?
Yeah, and like now he's already stating it. It feels like it's gonna be the same repetitive, like we talked about with the stubbornnness of Dave Tippett. The management is kind of stuck in that same hamster wheel of, oh, these players are good. Yeah, we'll keep them. We have to remember, we still have, like, Kyle Turris did not see the ice in the playoffs. but we
Oh,
still
buddy.
have him for another year.
He didn't like see the. I think he saw the ice
How
one
often
game in the
was
last
Bouchard
15.
out there?
Yeah,
Just
and
That so yeah, the mismanagement of a prospect like that honestly
Yeah.
is atrocious.
And-
See, the
fact
thing,
that he
and
sat
Caleb
out
Jones
most of
Malik,
the
not
entire
to
season.
not to derail your point, Malik, but
no.
I do want to say one last thing about Smith. Smith wasn't like stellar, like he didn't steal us games. However, he was solid. But the thing with
I would
Smith
argue
is,
he did.
I would-
Okay, he
I would
did.
argue
Yeah, he
that
kept us in
but he
there
didn't
a
win
couple
any of
times.
them. That's the
Yeah,
sort of
he didn't win
underlying
as many
premise to what
games
I'm
either.
saying. So he definitely kept us in the games. But I think with Smith, it wasn't that he's an absolutely fantastic goalie. He's not a bad goalie, but it's not like he was like a super crazy, amazing goalie with Cujo like saves from the 97 playoffs. It wasn't like that. The thing is with Smith, and this will come back to management, Malik, is I think his experience, his age, and his wisdom of the game allowed him to play the way he played and kept us arguably in it to potentially win, although we didn't. Malik,
You know,
I think that comes to management to understand goaltending and players and things like that. So
I'll say one thing or two things. One is that Mike Smith should absolutely not be your best player. Okay,
Shouldn't be, but he-
yeah,
you know.
like he
Yeah.
was, and that's great. But a 38-year-old Mike Smith should not, and he should definitely not be your goaltender of the future, leading you into the playoffs. A 39-year-old Mike Smith, that had probably a career year at 39 in a lockout or in a pandemic shortened
season. Yeah.
travel adjusted season. He should not be that guy. He should not be that guy. Secondly, Pat, to your point, the one you made earlier about how good teams get it done. This team is exactly not that. The fact that this series went that close with a team that we had that handily beaten in the regular season tells me that this team had opportunities to widen the gap of their skill and their talent and didn't take it. If the margin of error was that slim when push came to shove, then they made a lot of mistakes earlier on to where it came to this point, and now you got stuck. If you see that roadblock at the road ahead of you, miles ahead, and you sat on your laurels and you thought, no, we're good enough here. We're okay right here. In a season where your in-division competition was not that stiff, right? Where you didn't have the same kind of travel, you didn't have the same kind of problems. You finished second in your division. You had, two teams to beat, and then you're in the Final Four, and you know both those teams. You played against them all season. Do you know what I mean? Like
it's like wrestling with your cousins. You know which one you're going to beat up real quick, right? At the end of the day, go on.
If you came, look, if you made it this close, then it felt like to me that these guys were cramming for a test they could have studied for weeks ago. They could have solely
they weren't even
studied
cramming.
for
They
it.
were just faking
they weren't
it.
even cramming. Yeah, they were faking it.
The asset management that Blunt mentioned. Where was Evan Bouchard all season? Where was Caleb Jones? And we've seen Caleb Jones sour on the team a little bit. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Where were those players when you could have used them?
When you're on the ice, because we've all played hockey, guys, like whether we're NHLers or just like Punjabi kids playing in the Gurdwara parking lot, the point is when you're playing the game, you're focused on you in the game and those that are around you and what you can do in that moment. A coach, heck, a manager should have that foresight and insight into knowing their players and sort of having that foresight of
and I can understand
down the road.
I can understand not spending on assets this year. Right.
This year's an anomaly in that regard.
Whatever. Like, okay, your revenue stream has shrunk. You might have gotten a mandate from ownership to be, hey, we don't want to spend too much money this year. Okay, fine. Why did you not weaponize assets to move people out?
And
the ones you do have.
Also touching on Timmerman's point, if you're not spending to the cap or whatever the issue is, that's cool. But then you see teams like Toronto who are just in the same cap situation as you go and get assets like Foligno.
Yep.
Get a player like Foligno for the playoff, but then they do it in a creative way because they are already up against the cap. They're already trading. They're trading with a different team to make that space.
Jason Spezza, Alex Galchenyuk.
Jumbo Joe.
Well, Joe Thornton was a great get. He's been a great leader on that
locker room guy.
locker room guy. He has
Locker
not
room.
been effective as an NHL player this year. He's
But
really
we don't
struggled.
know. He hasn't, as a player, shown us effectiveness. But how do you
again,
know Austin
like, yeah.
Matthews wasn't mentored by this guy? Or
Dude,
something?
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
also-
sure,
He's
but
getting
you-
paid 1 point some million or whatever.
Some
right?
million to play whatever right on this team. That's great.
Yeah,
I
It's,
get that.
it's still a good signing at the
like
end of the day.
yeah,
Yeah.
Austin Matthews put up the same rates that he did.
thing
this
is
year
they
as he did
have
last
Joe
year.
Thornton.
Yeah, they
Okay,
have Joe Thornton. That's great.
all that
I think-
matters. They have him
I think
if they need him.
I think the bigger get
They have
that
like
we're missing
50 other
is
people that are Joe Thornton, right?
that are
exactly.
not Joe Thornton.
Like
for me,
Spezza, like you said.
Jason Spezza has been absolutely crushing it in limited minutes. Like he
He's
was
still
overplayed
performing.
in
It's
Dallas.
crazy.
He was overplayed in Dallas. He's right at his sweet spot. He plays 14 minutes a night.
And there you go.
And he
There's
absolutely
your point
ruins
of
people.
There's your point of how to use the assets that you have.
Yeah.
Wayne Simmons, Joe Thornton.
They
Foligno,
salvaged
they know-
Alex
they-
freaking Galchenyuk.
They know how to use those assets that they have. But again, Dave Tippett, I'm gonna completely just
Yep.
derail it.
No, you're
he did
absolutely
not
right.
he did not use it not only in the playoffs but all year. We were complaining again. Bouchard, where's Bouchard? Why is he on the taxi spot?
Just because a guy played a good player the minutes that he should have gotten in Jesse Puljujarvi doesn't excuse him from mishandling this roster the rest of the 50 whatever games that we've played this year.
And I'm gonna go back
And that
to the
includes
defense.
no,
I
that
complained,
hang on.
I complained about this earlier.
Yeah.
Why was Nurse playing 25, 30 minutes in a regular season game?
What is be right before the playoffs start.
But and then the playoffs start. Oh, he played 62 minutes. What a warrior. But that doesn't mean he's a warrior. That also means that you are lacking in depth on defense.
Yeah,
or
you
asset
lacked.
management.
There's a strong deficiency in our quality of players when Nurse is playing that many minutes, right? And like it's twofold. It connects to the coaching level and it connects to the management. This is a year-long problem with the Oilers. This team has not tried to sniff out. I think it's probably a 20-year problem. This is
30
honestly it's a
years?
decade at this point, right? This team has not tried to sniff out what a number one defenseman, number two defenseman is in so long.
Or just value
this is-
contracts.
This is the most risk-averse team maybe in the league, man. Like we don't sign or anything. We don't try to move our pieces to make a big splash. Like I don't
especially
know.
under Holland.
These managers have not been doing it. Like there's so many freaking managers that we had. Like it's just at this point, it's like for me, like I look at this whole Oilers organization and like I don't have any hope. And like I don't want to be a fan even at this point. Like for me, a lot of it, what I've been thinking about is like, okay, I want to see what Holland will do with cap space at his disposal. I want to see. I will give him the benefit of the doubt.
Shall
right?
we?
But the thing is, like, if he doesn't do it well, like, then what? I have no incentive to even care about this team
and
anymore.
I think that goes to like it's the apathy, right?
There's apathy, yeah.
We've seen this for how many years? And I'm gonna tag in Patwant here. The last cup we won was in 1990. What have we done since then? Like,
Well,
the
we
80s
had some good
80s
runs in the late 90s, but that's it, man. Other than
but
2006.
the 80s was an anomaly. There's statistically
Have they ever made it past like the second round?
So I'll give you some numbers here. 30 years
Outside
of playoff
of
history
06?
from today.
Yeah, I don't
18
think so.
years of those 30 years, they didn't make the playoffs, and 10 of
Holy
those
Christ.
years, they did not get past the second round. So like this team has been, the management has been so incompetent for so long. As fans, it's like we're in an abusive relationship with the Edmonton
Yeah.
Oilers. Like we're going back to it. We're like,
That's
like,
the title
oh,
of the
maybe-
podcast.
That's what
maybe,
it is.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe they'll be good this year. Oh, Holland has some cap space. Maybe he'll be able to manage it. But
Maybe we'll get one
But-
player
but-
and he's the savior of the team, right? Like,
it's just so
Bro.
frustrating.
Yeah, it's like I feel like
It's really
a
frustrating. Like I'm
terrible comment.
I'm so tuned out to this team now. Like it's to me, it's not even on a management or a coaching level. It's Daryl Cates. Like I don't think he gives
Yeah,
a crap
I don't think-
either
I
because-
think you nailed
think
something
he's-
really
he's
critical
done-
there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cates has also shown that he doesn't care by previous past history about trying to
Just other social things.
trying
that
to
he
strong
does, yeah.
style the city
Well,
of Edmonton.
yeah.
But like that's the top down. Like that that's like where if that's that guy's mindset or owner, I don't know what he's saying. I don't know like if these things are real. Like if he actually cares about winning, he's getting money, man. Like what does he care?
I mean, it's his little play thing. I mean, and most of it's written off for him because the arena and like the properties around it are, you know, I mean, that's the
city bent
thing.
over, right? But I'm just saying, when you look at it, like it's kind of like a top-down trickle effect of like, okay, you see the seriousness of this guy, then now you're seeing the seriousness of these other guys, like, and then you're seeing like the lack of willingness to like try something different, like,
and
even at this point, like,
Once upon a time, in the middle of the 70s,
boys on the bus, but now it's not even that. Now it's just ineffective.
Put it this way, guys. Let's take it into some mystic stuff. Once upon a time in the late or middle of the 70s, Peter Pocklington made a deal with a crossroads devil. And this is going into American folklore. Okay?
But, and again, statistically speaking, the 80s, I'm going to go back to it. We had Gretzky, we had all those great players, that's fine. But statistically speaking,
we've done it without Gretzky, man.
That is an anomaly. There's no team that is dominated like the Oilers dynasty did. And I doubt there'll be a team because
there were so many of the best ever to play it during that time.
Malik,
so
you brought up a very good point. Check this out, okay?
Chill.
The same manager. Listen to this one point, then I'll stop and let you guys take over again. The same manager, arguably, who managed Gretzky, Curry, and all those guys in the '80s, middle of the '80s to the end of the '80s, losing a lot of these guys and the muscle we had in the Gretzky deal with McSorley and stuff, but losing a lot of people after the Gretzky deal went through. The same manager, the same coach took Mark Messier in the 90s Oilers and did it again. And I always pull this out right here. And I always reference this guy, and he's got a movie coming out. It's not sponsored, but I can't wait to watch it. But it all comes from the top down in terms of management. Sure, owners is another sort of area, but management, coaches, and then therefore captains and leaders on and off the ice. And then it comes from there. If you don't have somebody like, you know what I mean?
Like right
Glenn
now.
Sather did that though. Glenn Sather did that. And he went to the Rangers and he did it on the Rangers.
Yeah.
That shows you where it comes from.
And that's the adaptability. Like look at the teams that are at the top of the league now. They've all bought into advanced stats.
That's exactly the point I was about to make.
The risk aversion, like Kush put to there's like, no, advanced stats will it didn't work. All right, cool. We're not touching it again. Yeah. But you look at teams like Carolina, they're doing really well. Why? Yeah. Because of advanced stats.
Yep.
And as much as I don't know anything about advanced stats, there is some level of competence there where you use the advanced stats along with the skills that you have, combine it, you get a competent team.
Yeah, you can't just rely on one thing. But here's the thing: in a pandemic shortened season, you don't have the same opportunities. You don't have the same kind of cash flow. You need to build your management, and you could do it for like $500,000 if you wanted to. You could pay like 10 people
by paying us.
Yeah, you could pay me, hire me, Oilers. I dare you. I dare you.
Double dare.
You could. But what I'm saying is that you don't have to go far to look at what successful organizations are doing across sports today and understand that the Oilers concept of success is still rooted in those 80s and 90s teams. And that's immensely flawed. Ken Holland today, all he could talk about was his success in the 90s and how he had to struggle and he had to grind, and his press conferences have been about nonsense. They have nothing to do with the actual issues a team today in the NHL has to face, with cap circumvention and contract issues, with scouting, with actual professional asset management, and then for development as well as asset procurement. If you have to look at this like a business, would you ever have a guy like Ken Holland running your business? Are you kidding me? No, he's going to be like, this guy's car is dirty. I don't want to hire him because, if he doesn't take care of his car, then he's not going to take care of the store. Are you insane? Are you insane?
Regardless of how that goes, the point is, we have to live with what we've just had for the last few seasons as fans, right? And, The management, clearly, I think we all have a consensus, at least in this podcast, that it's not with the gift of foresight. I think a lot of that comes from scouts, and we've talked about that maybe 2-3 years ago, where the scoutings seem to be an issue. But let's not go down that road right now.
Historically, I would agree with you, but I'm not going to pass judgment at this point on Holland.
I'm not either. I'm talking like
early.
3 seasons ago type of thing, maybe 4 Taylor Hall days, right? But the point that I'm trying to make now is, we had some good things happen this season as well. I mean, no season's good when it ends like this, but there was moments and little, I guess you can say, glimpses of things.
Hey guys,
sure, you can celebrate
the playoffs.
You can celebrate individual success.
Like, here's the thing. I want to address one
team.
thing. Okay, so the McDavid emotion in the playoffs is I saw sort of a birth of a new, like, I feel like he leveled up in terms of his character now as a captain. And
You would
will
never
that
see
last?
McDavid-
Because he
yeah,
yelled
you
at
would-
Jesse Puljujarvi?
No,
But you
not
would
that
break.
one.
But
Not that
no,
only.
There's I think multiple times in that game we saw him show emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he-
what it is.
He was frustrated with the referees. He's
Sure.
frustrated with the team. Even in game 3 when they tied the game, you saw him go like roll his eyes.
Yeah.
I think to Pat's point, you've seen players like Nathan McKinnon go through this.
Yes.
They've been in abysmal situations, and now they are leveling up. So I think to Pat's point, it's like McDavid is finding another gear in how to manage the NHL.
I've even seen Doug Waite yell at the refs, like, and Kelly Buckberger. Let's not even go there. But the point that I'm trying to make is, as a captain, he's always shown I can score, I can do points, I can do all these things. But now to show that captain like fight and verbally and standing up for people and yelling at your own players to get their butts in gear, I think that's going to give us a little bit more of a dimension. But again, it's only coming from McDavid. Where is it from others, right?
Yeah,
So
there
having said
needs to
that-
be a greater accountability. I don't know how much the issue with this team is leadership and how much of it is an actual lack of good players.
Yeah, there's only so much.
I mean,
McDavid could be like angry,
Until-
get emotional at his
until-
players.
yeah.
You have
I
to
see it as a
perform. You have to
license, though.
perform.
Until we see that addressed, I don't care about that other stuff.
That's
But the
also
word on the
where-
street is that
that's
he's
also
going to
where
want to
veteran
leave,
leadership comes from.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
get,
what I
get
saw.
that.
That's
There's-
what I saw from his emotion. I didn't see
Me
him
too.
like, oh man, this
Me too.
is hard and tough. We gotta
Even-
saddle up, boys. I saw like, yo, I am tired of this.
I know.
I
Even
can't believe I'm
Draisaitl showed
on
it.
this team. And this is a horrible situation. Yeah, but at least
Even Draisaitl showed it.
Yeah, but he said
And-
the right
and
things
then-
at least. But
And then you
Settle.
have
I don't
Holland
know.
come out. Then you have Holland come out and say, "Yeah, we're in this for the long term." You gotta think players like McDavid are gonna get frustrated when they hear that.
Yeah, and you heard that from Draisaitl in the press conference. He's like, we don't have another 5 years.
yeah, no,
He's
dude.
like, our time is
The
now.
ti-
So
yeah,
there's
it's
this
literally
real
now or never.
There's this real separation between what Ken Holland specifically is
saying,
thinking
yeah.
and what his top 2 star players are thinking.
So what can we
Like,
do
they don't-
now? Like, we're out,
Yeah,
guys.
I-
We're done, right? Like, somebody's going to win the cup, and it's not going to be
Yeah,
us.
just
I didn't think it was
jump
gonna
on
be
the
us.
Bruins bandwagon, guys. There's lots of room.
Never.
Come,
But the-
join me.
I'm on
what I'm
Vegas,
saying
if anything.
is if they can address and maybe this is for another episode, but like if they can address their needs organizationally, I'd be a happy guy. I don't care what they like. This offseason is so critical because they have so much money ready to blow. If they make 2 bad moves,
No, they're
This
already
team
gonna.
will not-
I'm gonna.
this
I'm
team
gonna
will not
guarantee
see
you,
a cup.
guarantee you one bad move right
which
now.
will be easy
Luke
to do.
Clendening. Luke Clendening will be an Edmonton
Yeah,
Oiler
it's
next
going
year.
to be a Luke Glendening kind of.
Which
That's
will
good.
be
So
easy
you-
to do.
An over
Stop bringing
focus
that
on
to
on.
fruition.
So,
on-
hey,
on
let me ask you
penalty
guys a
kill.
question.
Yeah, don't,
but it's
don't
going to be
speak that into
easy to
existence.
mess up because the quality of player in the UFA pool is not.
It's not,
the best.
and that's the thing. This is a guy who has not been able to identify UFA talent even in his time with Detroit. He basically bought the best players available when he was winning cups, and then in the post-cap era, he's literally been an ineffectual general manager. He's shown no talent in doing any of that. But what I will say is, and then his ability to make a trade is non-existent. He is terrified, especially from that Athanasiou deal.
That's literally
He is
what I was just gonna
absolutely
say.
quivering in his boots, and he said as much about making a trade. He's not an effective trade maker, and the kind of trades he needs to make are very, very high skill trades.
Yeah.
The kind of trades he's not capable of doing. The kind of things you need an Yzerman, a Dubas, Guys like
2006 Kevin Lowe.
well, what's his name? Yeah, you got to be a little ballsy, but even Kevin was just shooting from the hip. He didn't really aim much.
I don't know, Pronger, Samsonov, Rolson. That season,
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
But we've also seen, Kevin Lowe come out with
of Kevin
Yeah.
Lowe.
Dustin
Like
Penner.
that's what happens to these GMs. They
He wasn't bad.
They just sit on that past success,
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you guys to sort of angle the rest of the episode,
Sure.
because we're trying to kind of not get too long with our episodes, trying to kind of keep it more concise.
This will be
trying
the last.
keyword.
This will be the
But
last.
the last point is sort of a question, and I know Simran, you're sort of leading today's show, but I'm gonna try to
No.
frame this question for you and the rest
Please.
of everybody, and let's go with this. So we have arguably addressed that there's two problems in our overall management system. Okay, one being the GM and one being the coach.
Yep.
If you could change one and only one of them, who would it be out of the two? Would it be GM or coach, and why? And let's go. Kush, go first.
GM. Oh yeah, Kush, go for yeah.
Oh, you got to put me on the spot there. At this point, I'd say that's so tough because it's
But
like
let's say that's all you can do, right? What would you do?
yeah, I know. I'm just have to speak out while I think. I'm just trying to stall for time.
Kush, can I help? Can I help?
Okay, Simran, you go
Sure,
then if you need
sure.
to like just
Sorry, I gotta get it out. Okay, look at Vancouver. They got a great coach in Green, and they got an absolutely ineffective, bumbling moron for a general manager. Like, he's great at asset identification. He makes the worst signings and trades imaginable, and he cannot be a public speaker.
So then what would
Like-
we do on the Oilers based off of that?
I would. What I'm saying is, you're only as good as like the head, the
He's
top
saying
end of your
there's more
organization.
influence
the team
and there's
that's-
more.
It's got to be. It's got to be top down. It's
The
got to be
brain
top
controls the body, right?
down. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
So they say.
If you bring in a proper
more
GM,
impactful moves right from the GM position than
yeah,
there's
a
a coach.
guy, and that's what it was in Toronto. Brendan Shanahan came in as president of hockey operations, waited a year or two, saw what was going on, learned about the position, understood modern hockey tactics, and how to manage the cap from a business perspective and everything like that, and realized, hey, this is over my head. I'm going to bring in the proper guys. Brought in Lou Lamoriello, right? Who was
got
old
his,
school
got
guy,
his knowledge, and
got
then
his knowledge,
got rid of him,
pushed him out.
right?
He's got what's his face in there now? I don't even remember his name. But anyway, the young guy with the glasses.
Dubas.
Yeah, Kyle
Kyle
Dubas. Brought him in. They have a guy. He brought in a cap management guy. He brought in a full analytics team. He brought in, a training squad. They have sensitivity guys, or they have I think a whole training staff, like dealing with modern player issues and things like that. And then from the business aspect, they weaponized their biggest assets, which is the Toronto market and the fact that they have more money than God. And they got their minor team and their ECHL team within Toronto, like locally. So they've been able to take full advantage of those aspects. And they are retaining their talent in the managerial sector. And they're treating players the way they should be treated, which is like assets and not like, oh, this guy played good for us. He's a nice guy.
Not old boys club type of
his wife made me cookies the other day and she seems nice. And we're gonna
And I think
we're gonna sign him to
Kush's
50
point-
million
yeah,
euros.
So-
Can
Kush's
I guess
point,
you're
this
saying
offseason-
a manager instead of a
saying-
coach?
So I think
Manager.
for Kush's point, this offseason is critical
Sorry, Kush.
on what we kind of dictate as Holland's legacy and he's only been
Yeah.
around for a season or two, but how he manages this offseason is what dictates it. I think Dave Tippett is a good coach. I don't think he's a good coach in a team that has such high skill like McDavid and Draisaitl. But at the same time, Ken Holland has not shown competence. If you look at the UFA market, it's not the greatest, but there are players like Dougie Hamilton. Yeah, Brandon Montour.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of value there.
There's
a lot of
value there.
There's a lot
Can
of
you
talent
bring
there.
it in?
And if you're
And
imaginative, there's lots of things you can do via trade as well. There's guys that people want to get rid of. Like I look at Ricard Raquel. I look at another defenseman from the Ducks. There's a lot of guys out there. Like,
There's a lot of
throw in-
names
I'm
that
gonna throw
are
in a Duclair too,
veteran
right?
leadership too.
yeah,
right?
Duclair. I look at Colorado. They made a move for Devon Tays.
Yeah, but
You know,
yeah.
where we brought in Kulikov and Athanasiou and
But
Green
Taves
and
is
Ennis.
very underrated. On the Islanders decor, he was a very big piece, and a lot of people didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But then he got to Colorado,
But-
and there were so many more eyes on him.
But guess for what? Colorado knew.
Yeah.
Colorado knew about that, right?
So
So
I can't give an answer to this question because I want to again give the benefit of the doubt to the management, but I'm on that cusp of like he
gets nothing from me.
You're stuck in that old pattern of
Yeah.
I was so good in the 90s and it just doesn't work.
So Kush, let's go.
I'm hoping, but I also really don't like
Yeah,
this.
sorry, Kush. I stepped all over your
All right, Kush, there's
your point,
there's
but
your
yeah,
time.
please
That's
make your
okay.
point.
So my answer would be the coach at this point,
Okay.
just solely on that I am willing to give Holland more of a chance because to me he hasn't really. He's had like maybe one full year, but it was like towards like the middle of the year to the other middle/end now.
Yeah.
And I just need to see what he does this offseason. And I can make my decision after that based off of that. Like I've seen what he's done. Like we've already critiqued what he's done. But like to me, it's like to me, it was all obvious that he was going to do everything in this offseason, which he is. That's the plan, right? Like every move he's made has indicated, let's just wait it out and see when I have that money. So I am willing to wait and see what he does. And whereas
one more offseason, yeah.
I mean, this is it. Like if it's not good, then I'm ready to get rid of his ass too. But Tippett has already shown that he kind of became worse in terms of how he coaches.
He's getting senile.
Yeah,
He's
it
getting
literally he dropped the ball.
Yeah, so
Harder and harder
for me, it's
on
like
his
I
own
don't
foot.
mind getting a new face in. But the thing is that Oilers, the trend is always the same. Where we've been replacing our GM and coaches for a while. To me, it's an obvious but the issues have always been obvious. We don't ever have the quality players.
Well, yeah, they've been hiring the same kind of guy back,
Yeah.
right?
It's the same sort of. Kush, are you done your answer there? But
Yes, sir.
okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
jump in and just say my sort of opinion on this. It is twofold, but I will give you one. Here's the thing: like a coach is given. Let's just argue this point for a second. A coach is given XYZ player and said, okay, win the cup, right? So a coach is only as good as the squad that he or she has to coach. And, with that, my answer would be the GM. Now, to add to that, just to give some context, is the Oilers, a lot of these guys, not a lot of them, but a handful of them now have seen a new coach arguably every season for the last little while. Some of them 2 in a season, right? If I'm not mistaken. But the point that I want to make isn't that necessarily. It's that the coach needs to be also, I think it's the GM that needs to change. Because the coach, given the correct moves from a GM, might have suddenly better chess pieces to put into the game. Okay. So let's say our coach had more depth. And let's say our coach had, let's just say for lack of better terms and instead of arguing it, better goaltending, just generally. Then our coach perhaps could have done something more with it. Okay, so if our GM's making all these wicked moves and bringing us everything we need and the coach isn't putting it together, then the answer is the coach sucks.
Sure.
But the GM isn't bringing these players in, right? So my thought, perhaps, is that if I was sort of the upper management, not the GM, the upper management, I would have a word with Dave Tippett and be like, yo, listen, like,
Play this team like it's meant to be played.
you need to get your
play
you
on
need to
somewhere
sort
else.
your stuff out. Like you were a coach that did these things and we brought you in for that purpose.
Well, yeah, those exit meetings. If you're not bringing up those decisions, with the guy,
but that's not even
Right.
an exit meeting to me. That would be like yo, get your butt in gear, otherwise you're gone. Meeting to Tippett, and then I would get rid of Holland, bring in a good manager, hopefully, and then Tippett's kind of like, okay, I'm next. on
Oh,
the
okay.
chopping
You mean
block.
like for You
Yeah.
mean as if you're a POH, or like president of hockey operations, you'd come in and you'd have. these
Yeah, I'd
conversations.
come in and be like, listen, like,
Yeah, okay.
we have hope for you. We understand you're not getting a lot of players. We just fired this guy. We're announcing it tomorrow. If you don't, do something with what we're about to try to get you, then you're next. And then hopefully the coach can, because sometimes coaches need to be set straight too. Like, you should give a chance. Like, if you're willing to give your youthful players, like past reference Taylor Hall, a chance for like 7,000 years, then you might as well give your coach a few years, provided that he has better, sort of tools for the job.
Well, yeah. Well, also, he improves because, again, I'm going back to the play-in. This is we can substitute Winnipeg Jets with Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same conversation.
Exactly.
Because it was the same tactics used.
It's the same tactic. So I think the coaching is the issue. But I think to your point, Pat, it's like, as we talked about, it's that top down thing, right?
Issue to me.
Yeah.
This team was ready to take a step this year, and the GM didn't do enough to get them over the hump.
Yeah.
That being said, I think this coach is taking them as far as he can take them.
Based on his trying, but also that's the secondary.
So I'd like to see what how that math adds up when we have better players. But that being said, I'm very impatient with both the coach and the GM, especially after the presser today. I hope things change, but I know better. We'll say that. Until next time, I guess we'll sign off. This has been a good one, guys. Thanks for joining us.
That was the episode, the wrap up of the Oilers season, and I guess, as Simran put it, the sad story of being an Oilers fan. But remember to follow us on all social media, Pardesi_Beats on Instagram and
It's
Twitter.
sad but true.
Sad but true.
Metallica song, in case you didn't understand why I'm holding up my Metallica shirt. And now I'm going to explain it a little bit so that you guys understand the context. So just to make it a little bit awkward. So now you guys know. Thanks.
And again, make sure you tell your friends, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Pardesi Beats.
We're also on all podcast platforms, guys. Every single one of the main ones. Download the show.